Hey y'all, I am back with another What's for Dinner. Here to share some more dinner ideas. Throughout this video, I have thrown in a few old recipes that my family loves. I also tried out a couple new ones. Everything that I made was really easy. I truly feel like most people can make any of these recipes and they're all pretty budget friendly. So if you are stuck in a dinner rut, I hope that you come across this video and that something sticks out to you. First up, I'm gonna share my favorite recipe for white chicken chili. This one comes together so fast. So I start by melting down 2 tablespoons of butter in my Dutch oven, and I add in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I just whisk and cook that down for a couple of minutes. Then I'm gonna grab some chicken broth and half. I'm gonna start by adding in 3 cups of that chicken broth, followed by 1 cup of the half. So I'm just gonna get that all stirred together good. And as soon as this starts bubbling, it's gonna start thickening up pretty quickly. So at this point, I'm gonna add in my cooked and shredded chicken. This is 1 whole rotisserie chicken. This is actually one of my absolute favorite ways to use a rotisserie chicken. It just turns out so good. It makes it quick. You'll also need 2 cans of great northern beans that have been drained and rinsed. I'm also going to do a can of corn that I drained. And you'll need 2 4-ounce cans of chopped green chilies. These are the mild ones. You don't need to drain those or anything. Just dump them straight in. Give everything a good stir. And now for the seasonings. I'm doing a half a teaspoon each of salt and pepper, a teaspoon of chili powder. I did add in a little bit of extra because I had just a little bit left in that jar. And then you'll also need 2 teaspoons of cumin and some garlic and onion powder. If you want to save even more time, you can just omit that for a package of white chicken chili seasoning. McCormick makes a really good one. You'll also need 2 cups of pepper jack cheese. I did shred it myself. You don't have to though. And you just dump it straight in. You can do it at the beginning of the cook time or the end. I've done it both ways. It turns out great both times, but you only need to cook this for about 15 minutes and that is it. So easy. I want to show y'all how we serve it up. I'm ladling it into these cute little pumpkin bowls. I got those at Aldi last year. I top it with some shredded cheese and sour cream, and I don't know if I've done this in the past, but I had some avocado in my fridge that needed to be used up, so I just diced it up, added it in here, and I really love the addition of that in this soup. I also did some freeze-dried chives. We love to take tortilla chips and scoop this up as we eat it. It is just so good. This has been a family favorite for years now. It's actually been a while since I've made white chicken chili, so it really hit the spot, and it's cheap to make. It makes a lot of servings, and I think it's perfect for these colder months. This next night was one of those nights where I had no clue what to cook. Nothing was sounding good, but I did find this seasoning packet in my pantry called Mom's Cheesy Chicken and Rice Casserole by McCormick. I found that at Walmart a little while back and it caught my attention. I had never saw that before, so I really wanted to try it out, let y'all know what we think. So I'm just simply following the directions on the back of that package. I started by cubing up 2 boneless, skinless chicken breast, and I just layered that into the bottom of a greased casserole dish. And then I took 3/4 of a cup of white, long grain, uncooked rice, added that over top of the chicken, and then in this mixing bowl, I'm just combining a cup of milk, 1.5 cups of chicken broth, and then of course that seasoning packet. And with my whisk, I'm just going to get that all mixed together really good, and then I'm going to pour that over top of the chicken and rice. I do have my oven preheated to 400 degrees. If you don't have this type of dish, you can just cover your casserole dish tightly with tinfoil, but I really wanted to use this new casserole dish that my mom got me for my birthday. It's by the Pioneer Woman. I think it's so cute, but I popped that in the oven for 40 minutes. Then I pulled it out and added in a bag of frozen broccoli. Now, I do think this would have been even better with fresh broccoli, but again, just working with what I already had on hand, just threw it in there frozen. mixed it in a little bit, and then I'm just topping it with some shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and that's going to go back in the oven uncovered for a final 20 minutes. And here's what it looks like when it is done. I wanted to give y'all that first scoop to show y'all how it cooked up. The rice cooked up perfectly. Everything did. It was a little bit liquidy in the bottom, as you can see. I truly think that is just because of that frozen broccoli that I added. But here's my bowl. I thought that this was good. We all enjoyed it, but it just wasn't anything like crazy special. I'm not saying go and run and buy this seasoning packet, even though, again, it's pretty good. I do think that I would have rated it higher, again, if I used the fresh broccoli, which, it fed hungry bellies. We were all satisfied, and it's just a really easy, like, no-brainer meal to make. Up next, I'm sharing another family favorite. I'm making crock-pot Frito Chili Pie. This is one of the first recipes that I shared when I first started my YouTube channel many years ago, so I hold it near and dear to my heart. So I start off by cooking up a pound of ground beef. I like to season mine with some salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder. If you like onions, you can definitely dice one up. Cook it with your meat, but if you know me, I don't do onions. But once that meat was fully cooked, I simply drained off the grease and transferred it to my crock pot. I'm going to be dumping in an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, followed by just a normal size can of diced tomatoes, juice and all. You'll need a can of pinto beans and chili beans, and you do not drain those. You want the liquid from that. Now, this was so weird. Normally, the chili beans come right on out, but they were like super thick, and they kind of looked weird. I cooked these the same day that I bought them. The date was good. They smelled fine, so I decided to use them, and they tasted fine, so I don't know what happened there. But you throw in a package of taco seasoning, also a teaspoon each of chili powder and garlic powder, just a little bit of cayenne pepper, and a little bit of salt. I'm just going to get all of that stirred together, and then I'm going to add my lid. This is something that you can cook on low all day or cook it on high for a few hours. I love it because it's one of those dishes that you don't have to worry about overcooking like you would with like chicken. So I love it in the crock pot. But when it's done, you just stir in a cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. And here is what it looks like when it is done. This is my whole family is like one of their favorite comfort meals. It hits every single time. So here's how we serve it up. You layer the bottom of your bowl with Fritos. Oddly, Walmart was completely out of all their Fritos, but the Great Value ones worked just fine. I piled it with a couple ladlefuls of that chili, topped it with some extra cheese, Fritos, and sour cream, and that is it. It is so very simple. You stir it all together, and I just love it. I have served it many times at parties as well, and it's always a hit. It's another one of those meals that I cannot brag on enough. Y'all have got to make this Frito Chili Pie. Up next, I'm going to make a pot roast in my Dutch oven. I am so proud of how this came out. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this specific chuck roast. This was the first time that I realized that the vacuum sealed chuck roast are cheaper by the pound versus the ones in a tray. I don't know why that is. It kind of confused me, but this was almost 2.5 pounds of chuck roast for about $18. It's not the best, but it's better than I've seen in a long time. So I just wanted to mention that. But I took it out of the package, put it on this plate, and I took a paper towel, dried it off good. That is supposed to give it a more even sear. Don't know the science behind that, but we're going with it. And I just seasoned both sides heavily with sea salt and black pepper. So I've added a couple tablespoons of oil to my Dutch oven. I use avocado, but use whatever oil you want to. Typically, I would do olive oil, but I'm out. But I'm just gonna lay the pork chop in there. Oh my goodness, chuck roast, and I'm gonna sear it for a few minutes on each side to give it that beautiful golden brown crust. Then I'm gonna take it out, add it to that plate, and add in a big spoonful of minced garlic. If you like onions and you want that in your chuck roast, now would be the time to saute those down. I did add in a tablespoon of tomato paste, and I'm gonna let that cook for a couple of minutes. That's also gonna help that garlic like not burn. I'm also gonna add in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I'm just gonna cook that with the garlic and the tomato paste. Cook that flour down for a couple of minutes. Then I'm gonna add in some red wine. So the recipe actually called for a cup of red wine. All I had left was a half a cup, and it worked just fine. But you're gonna add that in, and that's gonna really help deglaze the bottom of that pan. So this is the time that you want to scrape all that up, bring all that flavor out, and you also want to simmer it long enough for it to reduce down, which didn't take long at all. Once you've done that, you can add in a carton of beef broth, which is 4 cups. I'm just gonna get all that stirred together real quick, and then I'm gonna add in 2 bay leaves. Now, at this point, I can go ahead and add back in my seared chuck roast along with all the juice that accumulated on that plate. And now I can add in my veggies. So I did a bag of baby potatoes that I washed, as well as a bag of baby carrots. Here, I'm just kind of getting that spread out a little better, making sure everything is down in that liquid some. Now, I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I'm going to add the lid on, and I'm going to carefully transfer that to my oven. Also, ignore the fall decorations in the floor. I was getting ready to take it all out to the building. But yeah, I cooked that for 2.5 hours. It could take up to 3 hours, just depending. You just have to go in and check it yourself, see what you like. But it worked really well in 2.5 hours for me. So here I'm just showing y'all how tender everything was. Everything came out so perfectly tender. Now, I do enjoy a good crock pot roast. I am still going to continue to do that, but something about cooking it in a Dutch oven just makes it extra special. I can't explain it, but I was obsessed with this pot roast. So I did serve it over some homemade mashed potatoes. I loved how brothy this came out because I just love like a lot of like gravy, sauce, juice, whatever over top of my potatoes. It's just so good to me. I did top it with some dried parsley just for a little pop of greenery, some color. Let me tell y'all, this came out absolutely amazing. We all loved it. There wasn't a drop of it gone to waste, and it made for the best leftovers for lunch the next day. When I was younger, I did not really care for pot roast, but as I've gotten older, I have really learned to appreciate everything about it. We had a lot of stuff going on this day, so I knew that I wanted to make something really simple, and I remember a recipe that I made years ago for Philly cheesesteak sloppy joes, and that just sounded so good, so that is what I'm making. I started by cooking up 2 pounds of ground beef. I seasoned that meat with onion powder and black pepper. And when it was fully cooked through, I added in 1 red bell pepper and 1 green bell pepper that I just diced up. Again, if you like onions, you can also dice up an onions and cook it with the peppers and the ground beef. But I just sauteed this around for, I would say, probably a good 10 minutes. You want those peppers to start getting pretty soft. And then at that point, I'm going to grab some A1 sauce. You're going to add in a half a cup of that. I'm a big A1 sauce lover. If you know me, you know that. I'm also going to add in 1.5 cups of some beef broth, or you can use beef stock, whatever you have. I'm adding in a teaspoon of some Lawry's garlic salt, as well as some more black pepper. I'm just going to get all of this stirred together, and as soon as it starts boiling, I'm going to simply cover it with a lid, turn it down to a simmer, and let it cook for about 10 minutes. Now, here is what it looked like after the 10 minutes. It was supposed to be done according to the recipe, but it was still way too liquidy to put on buns. So what I did is I cranked that heat up to high, and I just let it boil away until a lot of that extra liquid evaporated, and that worked out perfectly. So I'm just simply going to pile this up on some buns. I always recommend buttering and toasting buns, but there is some nights where I don't even feel like dirtying up another skillet. It still comes out good though. I did top it with some provolone cheese, and that is it. Really simple, something a little bit different from your typical sloppy joes. I served it with some potato wedges and some coleslaw that my dad gave me. But everything came out super good. We really enjoyed it. We had a lot of that meat left over, and I'm really excited to show y'all how I use the leftover meat. That will be in my next video. But yeah, that is all I got for y'all today. I really hope that you enjoyed the the video. I hope it was helpful. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do hope that you all have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.